What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to what the rest of the world thinks of Americans in 2019. It's a bit outdated. It was actually before the pandemic, which is crazy to even think about the world before that. But it's from the infographic show, so I'm going to take it with a pinch of salt. But we're going to check this out anyway. Links are in the description to my Patreon if you want to see some more of my reactions, like music reactions, TV series reactions, movie reactions, stuff that I can't post to YouTube pretty much. But yeah, links are there for those who are interested. But let's see these, I guess, opinions and see if they're true or what. I mean, I don't know how accurate this will be, but let's check this out.
Can someone tell me why Americans always leave the AC on, even if they go out all day?
I've never heard that in my life, but if that was me, I probably would. I wouldn't leave it on if I went out, but I would leave it on all day if I was at home. When I say AC, I mean the cold AC. I would use the warm one as well, but I wouldn't use it as much. I mean, I just love cold, man. I can't lie. I slept in the cold yesterday. It was so good. Oh, man. My living room gets freezing cold at night, so I just had to move there and sleep, and it was the best sleep I've had in ages.
This question we saw last night posted on an online forum by a disgruntled hotel owner. What followed were reams of insults, generalizations, arguments, peppered with the odd, intelligent, and temperate comment. That's par for the course online, but it's fortunate we saw that so soon before writing the show. We saw comments along the lines of Americans are just arrogant and ignorant, as if 325.7 million people were molded into one monolithic entity. Then we saw, I'm American, and I leave the AC on as long as I like. I pay for it. See, people said, they all think the world owes them something. What about the environment? Driving around in their big cars and SUVs, throwing out more trash than anyone, and pretending to care about environmental disasters. This went on and on, with people casting aspersions against an entire nation. Others, of course, weren't so bad, calling out people for having a very limited understanding of a country and its cultural and intellectual diversity. But can we make such generalizations? Could we argue that many Americans embrace their individuality and their right to do what they want? They paid for that darn AC, and they will darn well do what they want with it. The fact is, we all sometimes are culpable of whittling down the world to a manageable size that fits within our sometimes uneducated preconceptions. We cannot say all Americans are this or that, but perhaps there might be underlying character traits to a culture, something data, evidence, or experience can provide us with. But in the end, most of us don't rely on data or objective reasoning and rely instead on an image, a construction that we've created out of a wanton bias. Number 5. Arrogance. As we said, much of the world thinks Americans are arrogant. You don't have to look hard online to find this out. We hear that they like nothing more than to plant flags around their houses, and they go on and on about how great their country is, and by association that must mean how great they are, even though they often didn't do that much to claim this superiority. As the American comedian Doug Stanhope once alluded, some flag wavers are like imperial hangers-on. Anyway, some people say this is why Americans are often so loud, and don't worry, there are plenty of articles and forum questions asking why American voices tend to drown out others.
Is that actually true, though? Because, I mean, I always hear that, but are they actually, like, if you go to the US, will your ears hurt more than if you're from the UK or if you're from somewhere else? Will your ears just, will they be ringing more because you're in the US and people are loud? Like, is that actually how it's going to be? Because I don't really know how they can really judge that. Or is it just when you see an American, they seem to be louder? Because I don't even know if that would be the case. Maybe when they say loud, it means... Because, I mean, I've not met an American for fucking ages, to be honest. I mean, you see them about in my city. There was one at a restaurant the other day, because they were just sitting next to us, and I just noticed a bit of a different accent. And I don't really hear Americans often, other than at the university, because there's a few, because the university that's in my city is really diverse from people from everywhere. So you just hear voices sometimes because I play football there and stuff. But, I mean, I don't know. I've never gone to the US, so I can't judge it. But I just think it's one of those things that maybe you see it on the internet and you see certain loud energy, or it's just a certain portrayal of certain things. But I don't know if it's actually a thing. Again, will your ears ring if you go to a US city? If you go into New York, will your ears hurt because of hearing Americans speaking? Like, I don't understand it, but... I don't know, man.
Say when abroad. We might ask if this has anything to do with that sense of patriotism. The great country, greatest, best in the world, no doubt, better than anyone else, and also the entitlement that comes from a place that espouses expressive individualism at all costs. The loud American is a much better known phrase than the great piece of literature called the quiet American. Forums are full of people talking about these loud people, demanding, expatiating, bragging, complaining, extolling the merits of good old America, and forcing some poor European into a quiet internal violence, wondering all the time, do they not realize they're being obnoxious? Where's the self-awareness? Hell yes, go America. Now
I can sort of see, like, in terms of like Europe, right? You say you go to like Italy, I can just sort of Italy's just you just think of Italy, it just feels like a peaceful place. People just going about their days, not really talking. And I'm probably thinking about more of the villagey sort of areas. 'Cause I'm sure in like places like Milan or Rome, it can get pretty crazy. But in certain places, I just feel like it's just like peaceful. You got the blue skies out. You just going for a walk, going to the cafe, just chilling. I can see that, but it's just a difference. But not all of Europe's the same either. Like some parts of Europe are completely different, man. Some parts of the UK are different too. Like you're gonna get people like that everywhere. It's not like it's a certain country. You're gonna get people that are just louder or brag more, or this and that, in every place in the world. Like, yeah, it's just, I don't know why. I guess maybe because the internet, and I guess everything sort of from the US is seen more because of the internet and stuff, and you just judge it from that.
This isn't, of course, true for all Americans. It's a stereotype, but it exists. If you don't believe us, check it out for yourself. You could be reading for a year, even though it's fantastically unrealistic and arrogant to think the stereotype is true for all people in the USA. What we hope to do is point out such stereotypes, and we can discuss them after the show. Now, on to the next. Number 4. Ignorance. All countries attempt to imbue a sense of nationalism in their people. It's how they get soldiers to fight wars, to believe in the country, to create a sense of belonging and cooperation. But do nations attempt to foster ignorance in people? Well, you might have read some critics saying the American school system is purposely trying to dumb down its citizens.
Is that actually true though? Because again, I hear that. I hear that, but is that even true? Like, what are you going to be learning in these schools that makes people like not as smart? I guess it's just maybe schools that just aren't as good. But in general, you've got some of the best schools here as well. So I'm kind of confused with this one, because it kind of like goes against the idea. You got some of the worst schools and then some of the best. Maybe in just like other countries, it's a lot more consistent with schools, and the school systems, it's just like they're not going to have different levels. They're going to have all like the same. So people will be learning the same stuff and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know.
They want workers, robots, not creative, critical, skeptical kids.
I remember we had one of my friends from high school when I was like 13 to 15. He came from South Korea. South Korea. He came from Seoul. He lived in the UK when he was really young, but he moved away in his dad's job. Then he moved back. But like, you wouldn't tell that he lived in the UK before. He spoke English like well, but like he had an accent and stuff. But he was so smart. He was so damn smart. But then in Korea, he wasn't. I mean, I had conversations. He wasn't like the smartest kid. I think he was relatively smart there. But he was so smart. So there is a level to it where it is like, okay, the levels that they are doing in these other schools around the world it's a whole different level. Because this guy was so much smarter than everyone else. And again, maybe he went to a better school there, so it just wasn't comparable. And the school that I went to in my city was one of the worst. So that probably doesn't help either. But like, I was just baffled. I was like, bro, how are you not even that? Like, you're saying that you're not like above average in your country, or you're not like really high in your country, but you're the smartest here in maths already, and like this and that. And it's just like, bro, this ain't fair, man. What's happening in the UK? What are we not doing right? But I know certain cultures, they take education so much more seriously, to a whole nother level, to the point where it's stressful, really stressful.
That might ask too many questions. Hail the Ideocracy. We're not saying this is true. It's a criticism leveled by some people, but we can say that much of the world thinks Americans are ignorant. Well, to be frank, most of those shows pointing out American ignorance regarding their own nation are made on home turf. But you'll find people outside of the USA saying things like they don't know anything about history, not even their own. They believe only in their own heroic narrative and think the French Revolution is a roller coaster. We're told Americans are so insular, they are out of their depth when they walk out of the front door. But is any of this true? Listen to this. There's a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there always has been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. Those words were spoken by the American scientist Isaac Asimov. But the fact that those words were his means there's a contradiction in terms. America is constantly ablaze with creative thinking. There is a daily conflagration of innovation, thoughtful introversion, skepticism, groundbreaking scientific research, world-changing fiction, reasonable, intelligent discourse appearing in blogs, podcasts, etc. But it turns out a lot of people, including inside America and outside, believe a culture of ignorance is propagated there. Is there any data to support this? Yeah, there seems there is. The Big Think wrote a story in 2013 with the title, "Why Are Americans So Ignorant?" And indeed, within the article is a lot of compelling evidence that many, in some cases most Americans, know very little about how their own country works, or worked, and don't even ask about the rest of the world. Weak civics curricula, partisan propaganda, and misplaced priorities of the mainstream media all share some blame for American ignorance, the writer says. But we feel it goes deeper than that. We'll let you decide. Number 3, positiveness and friendliness. We've really been bashing.
Why is that a bad thing? Oh no, so there's actually positive things here as well. I thought this was all negative. Okay, here we go.
America. So now we'll look at a positive stereotype, as equally untrue for all Americans. We must add, though, that when it comes to generalizations of countries, many people harbor a negative bias. How many of you have ever uttered the words, "Oh, I really don't like the English, the French, the Indian, the Chinese"? Just add your nation to the list. We recently saw a comment made by a young American who has gone to study in the UK. He couldn't wait to get out, saying the atmosphere for the most part was gray, unfriendly, and intimidating. Maybe he just went to the wrong place, but one
That's just the UK, man. It's just grey here. It's just how it is. You gotta get used to it.
might argue that Americans are in general more open and positive than Brits. We might remember what the dry, wry British celebrity intellectual Stephen Fry said about his trip to the US when he made a show about travel there. He said this sense of outgoing positivity he enjoyed, and he said it's something the Brits were missing. You can do it in America, or at least many people are taught to think they can. While back in Britain, perhaps the most downtrodden submit to the fact that life is hard, painful, where's the beer? What some people call arrogance, Fry said, was partly American optimism, or what he said was a refusal to see oneself in a bad light. He added, if you go to an American bookshop, by far the biggest section is the self-help and improvement. He said people believe that life is refinable and improvable. That's how America works, he said. You adapt and you find ways to improve, you never submit. Hell yeah, he loves that about America. Take that in your British pipes and smoke it. We think we might add here that a lot of people have experienced this, and while harboring the stereotype that Americans are outgoing and confident, those same people might hold a counter generalization that sometimes this positivity climax is a bit too hard. It jumps the shark. And then, within this transposition, it manifests as something deplorable to others. It turns into pride without substance, blind faith, a superiority complex that is bathed only in its own ignorance. Number 2, money. It's all about money.
I love my money, man. I love money.
If you've ever read critiques on Hollywood versus cinema, you'll find that Hollywood is said to be firstly, perhaps only, a money-making enterprise. European cinema, we're told, is more about the art. In an American film, often the happiest of all happiest endings is when they get away with the money. What else could matter? If you want to make a movie in Hollywood, first show bits of it to the most average consumers and ask what they think. Then make the film based on the results. Even if the movie might be greeted with intense dislike by more refined audiences, it's all about cash, goddammit. We won't spend long on this, but America didn't invent capitalism. It's evidently just been very good at it. But at the same time, America embraces free speech, and critics of capitalism and neoliberalism abound in the country. America, the foundation of the United States, was built to have restrictions in place for if or when any behemoth gets out of control and gains too much power. We won't address the complications or merits of this today.
But does that happen? No, there's some big companies that have too much power even now.
We will say that much of the world thinks America is overly money-centered, more than, say, focused on happiness gained from other means than merely being rich and having lots of things. Number 1. Americans are all fat. Some Europeans and other citizens of the world like nothing more than to show their own superiority by constantly defaming Americans for their ingrained bad habits and slovenly TV-addicted fast food-related.
This is what I find crazy, right? You see how with the schools, you've got two ends of the spectrum. You've got the best schools, or I don't know if they're the worst, but some of the worst schools, if that's what he's mentioned here in terms of education. Then you got some of the best athletes around the world, if not the best in certain areas. And then you got like the highest percentage of fat people as well. It's just like it's always just to the extremes, either way, good or bad. It's so weird how it works like that. And I wonder the reason behind it. Maybe there's some sort of cultural reason, but I'm not too sure. It doesn't really make sense to me because it seems like it's extremes of both ends.
Related obesity. It is a fact that some part of America has a problem with eating, and this has led to what's called an obesity epidemic that has resulted in widespread health complications. Your average Asian might touch down in, say, Houston for the first time and think they've discovered a land of giants. But America is not the fattest country in the world. It's around the 17th according
UAE?
But America is not the...
But to be fair, a lot of these are very small countries. Qatar's the biggest one here, I think, and it's like 3 million. Qatar's here?
fattest country.
Qatar, again, yeah, a lot of small ones. Egypt, I wouldn't have guessed that, to be fair. The UAE in Qatar has baffled me. I was not expecting that. But a lot of these are small little island countries, or it's like... I don't know how Egypt is here, to be fair. That's a surprise. I wonder where the UK ranks as well.
In the world. It's around the 17th according to the WHO. It's the fattest Western nation, but a lot of other Western countries are not far behind in terms of obesity. Obesity crises are happening in the UK, New Zealand, Ireland, Australia, and many other nations. We can
I hear those stats all the time, and don't get me wrong, you'll see big people, but I've never seen, like... I don't really see really, really big people. Often, at least. Again, maybe because they just aren't outside, which would make sense, but...
hardly say the junk food epidemic is an American affliction only. And on the other hand, many Americans are fitness freaks. It's a fitness-conscious country as well as a nation of couch-bound sugar junkies. Just look at popular podcasts such as The Joe Rogan Show, and you'll see that health, longevity, physical improvement is on the minds of many Americans. You could even go as far to say that this new wave of health improvement is being led by an American avant-garde. But yes, the stereotype of fat America is hardly only imaginary. We could have added more to this list, but we feel if we're to debate these stereotypes in the comments, we might leave it here as it could get confusing. Do you think?
Let's just see the comments of this. I wonder how they are. I'm from Texas, and most stereotypes of Americans go double for Texas. I don't think 2020 has helped America's reputation. Americans, stop generalizing Americans. Also Americans, you're from Asia. Yeah, I mean, people refer to Asia as that, but obviously Asia is so many different cultures. You know, these comments are brutal. God damn, YouTube comments are at a different level. I'm a guy born in Africa that moved to the US. I'll admit that I've noticed a good portion of Americans I met have a very limited knowledge of outside world, especially Africa. Yeah, I guess read this comment. I can't be asked to read that, but I guess it's pointing out the positives and the negatives. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction, and yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And yeah, until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.